extract files on a Windows machine when we get there. Now, this is actually the Python 2 method of doing it. There is a Python 3 method now, which is slightly different syntax. We just say Python 3-m and is http-server 80. That is the only difference. You can host up whichever one you want, both will work, but since we are doing all Python 3 lessons, I figured I would show you that. Now, another way that is common to extract files on a Windows machine or send files over is to host up an FTP server. Now, you can download an FTP server and make that work, hosting it up, transferring files that way. But another thing that we can do is we can host it up with Python, again, in the area that we are in, right? The folder that we're in. So this is called pyftpdlib. We need to actually install it, so we're just going to use pip and install, or pip3 if you've got pip3. Just type pip install pyftpdlib. Okay, and then it's as simple as saying Python 3-m pyftpdlib, maybe, if it wants to work, 21w. No module. Maybe for just Python then. Let's try it. There you go. We might need a pip3 install again to get it to work for Python 3. So we won't do it twice, but just know. So now we're hosting up an FTP server. If you went onto a Windows machine, FTP is built in. You can transfer files that way. If we said in front of this, FTP like this, you can see that we've accessed this. Because we put the W here, it should be a -w, sorry. It's allowing login anyway, but this should be for an anonymous login, just like this. Worked with pip3 and Python 3 for Leah, awesome. So I'm not spouting craziness. Okay, we close the connection, and there you go. So you don't have to start a service and stop a service. You can literally just start and stop with Control-C and a quick Python module. So these are definitely important things. Ion, I see you. I will move your points over when I have a minute. When we're done, before the giveaway, I'll move the points over. That way you have it. Okay, time to write our shitty script. So let's just do a new tab button here. And I'm going to go ahead and just hit save. We're going to call this scanner.py. And of course, we're going to declare at the top, this has been Python 3. Okay, so we really need to think this through on what we want to do. If we're doing a port scanner and we want to take arguments, well, we talked earlier. Basically, if we're taking arguments, we're definitely going to need sys, right? So we're going to import sys. Hey, Black Sheep, how's it going? We'll just say allows us to enter command line arguments. Among other things, it does a lot. There we go. We're not getting the fancy colors. Now we're getting the fancy colors. Okay, well, we also need to connect to a port. And while I haven't shown you this, if you guys did your homework, let's see who did their homework. This is going to be a quiz. If I wanted to connect to AFINet or SockStream, and I wanted to do a IP and a port connection, what am I importing? Who did the homework? We're importing socket. Thank you. For the rest of you, don't skip leg day. You need a good foundation, and you guys are skipping leg day. Just saying. All right, we need to import socket. Thank you, Jeff. All right, and you saw this earlier. I want to add a little bit of pretty. So we're going to take some pretty and just add in date time. We'll import that. Now we'll caveat that this script is stolen and modified. It has been stolen and modified all of the internet. So I have no idea who the original owner is. I'm just clarifying that this is definitely stolen, and I have modified it from Python 2 into Python 3, and I've also changed some things. So I've made it my own a little bit, but the base foundation is definitely somebody else. I feel like my dad just told me he's not mad, he's just disappointed. Yeah, I am disappointed. Do your damn homework. All right. So let's go ahead and set up our first argument, and we're going to define our target. Okay, so let's think this through. I'm going to take an argument, and when I say that we have an argument, what I'm saying is, when I run this script, we're running Python 3 scanner.py. Now, scanner.py is considered argument 0. If we wanted to enter an IP address here, this would be argument 1. This would give us a total of 2 arguments. Remember, we start counting at 0. Now, what is some sort of statement that we'll need that checks for this? Do we know? Like, what are we checking for? What would be something logical to check for here? And we're not going to make a perfect script. Remember, this is a shitty script. If argument 1 is empty or not, that's pretty close. That's pretty close. I'll do you one better. What if we say, are there any arguments? That's good. Yes, so we're in the right line of thinking, and that's really where I want you guys to be. I want you guys to be thinking logically, even though you don't know the syntax, thinking logically about how we can write this, right? So we're going to say, if the length of the arguments, argv, is equal to 2, then we can declare a target, right? So this will look something like this. We'll say target. We'll call socket, and we'll say get host by name, sysargv1, and we're going to say, all this does is translates a host name to IPv4 if we need to. So if you have a host name out there, like one of my machines is called Punisher, if I entered Punisher, it would do name translation and just put it into an IP address, in theory. That's what socket.getHostByName does. Now, sys.argv1 is the IP address that we want. So we don't want 3 arguments. We don't want 1 argument. We want 2 arguments. Now, this isn't going to be perfect. Remember, this is a shitty scanner. So we should be making sure that the arguments we're entering are a valid IP address, right? Like, we want to make sure that we're entering in, 3333 for each octet of some sort. So now, let's say that, okay, if our length is 2, then we're going to go ahead and set a target based on what we input for sysargv1. If it's not 2, we're going to print out invalid amount of arguments. And then I like to generally give out syntax. So we'll say syntax, Python 3, scanner.py, IP, and most importantly, sys.exit, which allows us to actually close the program. If you don't sys.exit, it'll hang. So this will exit for us. So it's always good to check your work as you go. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. Python 3 scanner.py. Okay, I didn't put in an argument. And now I'm going to put in 192. and it doesn't throw any errors, right? Can you control C if you don't sys exit? I think it hangs without a control C. Let's see. I could be wrong. You're testing my knowledge here. Actually, it worked fine. I think what's going to happen is when we start adding more arguments, it's going to hang. Or it's going to try to move on to the next thing. It'll keep reading the script, and what we're doing is we're actually exiting the script at this point, if that makes sense. So let's go ahead and throw that back in there. And let's add some pretty. We'll say add a pretty banner. And we'll put in times 50. And we'll print scanning target plus target. We could also use a placeholder here. Print time started. And we'll say plus string of date time dot now. Remember, we have to convert to a string to put into the string. Close that, close that, close that. 3 of those. Banner's top priority. You want to do ASCII art the rest of the time? I agree, actually. We'll print another 50 here of these little dashes. And that should give us a pretty little banner. So here's where we can test it out, right? So let's say we put 192 right here. You'll see it tries to convert into the correct subnet, and it prints out our cute little banner, our pretty banner. Now, let's take out the sys exit just for demonstration. If we save and we throw no argument, now we have issues. Because, remember, we called target here, so it's trying to run through here and call target, but target's not defined because the length isn't set to 2. So, because we don't exit here, it tries to continue on and do the script. You see it prints out everything. So this is why sys.exit is important. Okay, I need a drink. Been talking for way too long. All right. So now, we're going to do a few things. We're going to use a try except. I showed you guys try except last time, meaning we're going to try something, and if we throw an exception of some sort, then we're going to close out of the program. Bye, White Rose. Thanks for joining us. So we're going to say try. We have to indent on the try. Okay, so we're going to write a loop here. If we think about it, we need to grab ports. If we were making a not shitty port scanner, we would probably want to be able to define ports using something like argparse. Remember, we saw argparse last time. We would import argparse and try to use that. And, try to make it better in terms of we can define it, or if we don't define it, then it'll try to run through the top 1000, kind of like Nmap does. Otherwise, we're writing a shitty port scanner, so we're actually just going to pick a range because we're not going to do threading or anything else. You'll see what this looks like. So we'll say for port in range, and I'm just going to define 50 to 85. I'm going to scan my my router and hope that port 80 or port 53 is open for DNS, and you'll see why, because this port scanner is shitty and slow. We'll talk about that in a minute. So s equals, we're just setting a variable here so we don't have to type this out every freaking time. This is very, very commonplace if you did your homework, which apparently one of you did.